got like 10 stills in Dubai now.
That was 4.6 million actually.
Okay, well,
Get it right.
Went to Asia to race Lamborghini Huracan.
When I looked, it was around $250,000.
20k sales and 30.
Wild!
Yeah, it's bread.
Everyone, welcome back to the SideHustle podcast. Today we've got Mike here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, mate. You know, what you do, and
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me, guys. Obviously, I've been a big fan of the podcast as well as the community for a long time now. So it's actually quite surreal to be actually here in the flesh and seeing the lads that made it all happen. But yeah, so story really, I guess, you know, in terms of the CCN involvement, it's probably been going on for the last couple of years or so. I've kind of dovetailed in and out of it, obviously having quite a busy kind of commitments with career and other projects. Then I tend to, you know, I've been back more recently, as you would expect, with a big push to Q4. But I think the sort of background behind it was predominantly I started at a time pretty much in the thick of COVID, as I'm sure most people did, actually, to be honest. My background before that, you know, I think my family very much referred to me as a bit of a Dell boy of sorts. You know, I've got my finger in a lot of pies and try and diversify the income streams really into as much as I can, as I'm sure it becomes more prominent for people to do so nowadays with the cost of living and stuff, right? Can't just be relying on one thing. And I guess to maybe even take it before then, you know, I've always been into sort of the whole wheeling and dealing scenario ever since I was a kid. You know, we grew up in a sort of very sort of poor environment in Venezuela. Sort of, I was born there back in '86. So surprise for people that think I look 20, I'm not. But yeah, born in '86 out in Venezuela. Mom and dad used to, you know, be quite affluent couple. Dad used to be a commercial airline pilot. Mom used to be a professional chef.
Mad.
Crazy.
So quite an eclectic mix.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a good upbringing, don't get me wrong. It's a third world country, quite heavily associated with a lot of kind of stereotypes like kidnapping and, you know, like sort of socialism and things like this. But the reality was, obviously, we were quite guided away from that, from having a good upbringing and our dad having a good career.
yeah.
But then the reality was that outside of that kind of environment, it actually used to be quite a dangerous country to live in. You know, sort of very corrupt and so forth.
How long did you live there for?
So born and raised and lived there for about 12 years before we then made the move to the UK, which was heavily dictated by circumstances, right? Again, collapsing economy, very politically unstable. And then at the time, my dad actually lost he became diabetic. And as I'm sure most people will be aware, you know, it's a very sort of dangerous thing to have a pilot with that could potentially spasm into a fit whilst he's 38,000 feet, right?
It's not ideal, is it?
Which is not great things, but, you know, as a result of that, and obviously all the circumstances happening in the country, then my parents thought it'd be a good idea for my twin brother and I for us to obviously move, because my dad's British, my mum's Latin, right? So we've got half of our family split between the two countries, and they thought that to give us a better upbringing, it'd be a chance for us to kind of escape all that kind of escalating tension in the country and come to the UK, which is probably a good thing we did, really, because had it not been for that, it wouldn't have given us, my brother and I, the platform that we've had, obviously, in essence, in the last sort of 20 or so years to grow into the opportunities that we've got into, right? Because, as you would imagine, growing up in a Western country, developed country like the UK versus South America is two very different extremes. And very lucky for that, really, because I've still got cousins and family out there that are still really struggling, right? So very fortuitous to be here. And, you know, brings us to more current day, right? So come to the UK when we were sort of 12 and, you know...
When you moved to the UK, did you speak English as well? Or?
No. Surprisingly, considering that the accent that I carry now, which I'm hoping you can edit to get rid of the brumminess, but...
it's strong.
Basically, we came here in the summer of '97, and it's a case of, lads, you know, you've got the summer holidays basically to learn English. And
that must have been tough.
Well, my grasp of English was hello, or in my pronunciation by there was hello. It's like, you know, really, really poor executions. But, you know, our parents actually sent us alone because it would be then a further 3 years before we saw them again, because they had to obviously tie off all the ends and, you know, wrap everything up in South America. But we moved in with my nan and granddad out in the Midlands in a place called Stourbridge, like quite close to like Dudley, Wolverhampton, Birmingham. And it was quite lucky for the fact that they lived in a very sort of nice cul-de-sac, but it had about 25 houses, of which about 10 of them had kids our age. So our summer holidays was pretty much spent basically walking around in the cul-de-sac in the summer playing with all these kids, but then my brother and I walking around with our little English dictionaries.
That's crazy.
Like, honestly, every
That's
time
insane.
we got told a word, it's like, oh, I don't understand that. So we're literally walking around with a portable dictionary saying, what does tree mean? Oh, okay, yeah, I got that. Yeah.
That's mental,
Because we
mate.
were playing hide and seek and
Yeah.
hiding in trees. So it's like they're saying, go hide in that tree. I was like, what is a tree? So I was like, guess on trees. I said, what is a tree? It's like, yeah. And it'd just be, but mate, imagine having Google Translate back then. That would have been useful.
Yeah,
100%.
So easy now.
And so we did 3 years with them, went to school in the fall. And it was kind of like, you know, these guys were predicted. We went from year 4 in South America to year 6.
Mm-hmm.
So we jumped 2 academic years, obviously just because of the way the schooling system works. And it was just a case of, oh, you get predicted scores for your SATs back then. And it was just like, oh, these guys are going to struggle because they haven't got the grasp of the language. And the one thing that kind of instilled a kind of drive in me then is just being told that you were going to fail.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I'm a victim of circumstance, but I didn't want to let that define me ultimately. So they're saying, oh, these guys will be lucky to get 2s and 3s. It's a shame because they're smart, but it's just obviously the language, I think. And for me, that kind of very much installed a drive to say, I want to overturn that perception.
100%.
And luckily, we ended up coming out with 5s and 6s.
That's really good as well. That's like top tier stats, really.
Which was good, I think, more so for the fact that what actually bode in our favour and put us in a good stead is that all the actual content was actually far less of what we were learning the stuff that we were already doing in year 6 here in South America. We're doing it 2 years prior.
Really?
All we had to do was just grasp the language and we could actually apply
Yeah.
the theory much easier because we already knew it. So
How long was it till you fully understood English and could speak it properly?
I think by the time the first sort of half term came in the winter, I think we were pretty much there or thereabouts. I think
That's pretty quick.
because I think we were 11, 12. No, sorry. We would have been 10 actually, it's just before high school. So we sponged it up pretty quick. And quite happy that we didn't do it in a way that obviously, 'cause my mom actually, she's been speaking English for 30 years, but she's like 65 now, but her English is quite broken.
Yeah.
And so is my aunties and so forth that I've moved subsequently since. But
Yeah.
because they've learned it at a much later age. So obviously you can tell that these guys are from a different country because it's heavily accentuated. Whereas with us, obviously we've just kind of embedded into the local sort of like accent really. So it took about 6 months basically, give or take, till then we were pretty much fluid, and
That's quick.
the rest was just learning actual words through English class, as you would English
Yeah,
language,
yeah.
basically, just to develop then, and just surrounding yourselves constantly with people. And that was it, really. I think once we got to that point, then it was just kind of like high school, then growing our friendship circles, and you know, just trying to embed ourselves into everyday English life and embracing the culture, really, because obviously it was a very stark contrast to where we used to. You know, hot weather, living on the beach, gated community with a pool. We almost went a little bit from like a riches to rags story because we had a very affluent upbringing, but then because of obviously my dad losing his job and then having to restart over, you know, translate lifestyle of a third world country into a westernized, and call it inflation or what you will, but it just doesn't translate to the same,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
So we did kind of really lose everything because subsequently 6 months after we moved, they had all the there was a very big, massive issue in Venezuela whereby there was massive like natural disasters, mudslides. Over like 250,000 people died in the state we were living in. So we pretty much dodged a bullet, metaphorically and physically, like, in some respects. And, you know, having to deal with all that transition was hard, right? And all that happened in Venezuela. As a result, we lost all our assets. Obviously, my parents had houses, apartments. All of that went in the slides and the mudslides and whatever else, obviously, then got lost. And the government swallowed it up anyway. Pensions got lost, and the government took everything, really. So we had to start from ground zero back in the UK. So we didn't have anything of what we've got. So in essence, it's really kind of, it's the sort of stuff that will ultimately make you sink or swim and put some hairs on your chest, right? Because you've got two options. You can either embrace the fact that you've got nothing and that's just going to be your reality, or you fight hard for obviously wanting the things that you want. You ultimately going to have to work for it. And that's what it became. You know, we living in the UK, went to university down in South London, and off the back of that, then really just kind of kicked on. Really,
What did you study in university?
Things that you don't really need to. It's business and finance, and I cheated a little bit. I did languages as well. Never told them I spoke Spanish. So just so in case I need to basically supplement my credits, basically. So I had Spanish in the back pocket.
100% on that.
It was a bit of a... Well, all my mates still give me grief now. It's like saying, you're the only guy that I know that failed Spanish by getting 98% and failed it because you failed it on attendance.
Oh my God, really?
It's a funny one, really, because it's like... you have to basically, I think 10% of the grade, it's predicated on the fact that you have to be there for for most of the lectures, right? And I just say, I don't need to be there. And they said, you can't be fluid in the language if you obviously want to take a Spanish course or a French, whatever language you take, you just can't be fluid.
Yeah.
And I just said, I need that in the back pocket just in case I decide to get too drunk consistently, basically through freshers and whatever else. And come year 3, that's actually the year that ultimately accounted for the bulk of your grade.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting 98%. And they said to me, you don't speak Spanish. You're not from a Spanish country. Are you sure? It's like, why? It's like, well, we've reviewed back your oral exam. Obviously, it's recorded. And a lot of the words that came out of your final, obviously, presentation were native slang words to Venezuelan countries, which are only... So you basically... So how do you go from getting C's, B's, D's throughout the semester to then landing a 98% studying? Literally, I had nothing else. I had to go through they had to pull me into a review panel to actually say, well, this guy actually, it was
Did he let the grade go through in the end? Or?
In the end, it did go through, mate, after a lot of convincing, but it could have
just lying square to him.
Could have costed the degree. Yeah. And I mean, if they see this now, then I'm sorry. Or
what happens now if they see this? Can't take it off you, can they?
Well, luckily I run my own businesses, so they're not going to take my job away from me.
But anyway, we'll fast forward from there. So when you was going for uni and stuff like that, did you have any idea of what you wanted to do, in terms of making money, job wise, I think all that kind of stuff?
Yes and no. I think when I graduated, it was back in 2009, which ultimately became the height of the credit crunch. So I already worked for a retail job at T-Mobile, what used to be, it's now EE, and I was actually already accepted into their graduate scheme, ironically enough, in their head office, which was over the road from our campus in Hertfordshire. And that I lost that as a result of the credit crunch, and that graduate scheme got scrapped from 30 intakes to about 5, and I wasn't one of the 5, unfortunately. Sidetrack a little bit onto that. I was actually trying to get involved with different projects. I did my final dissertation on the rise of alternative financial technologies and cryptocurrencies. Would you believe?
Really?
And that's when Bitcoin would have been sub $1.
Wow. Literally.
And this guy didn't.
Did you know about crypto and stuff?
Well,
like
I just started hearing about it, and you hear things about alternative forms of payment and how the world's going to digitize its currencies and stuff. And that was obviously, blockchain. Mm-hmm. That was 12, 13 years ago, right? And this guy who did a dissertation on that didn't think to invest even £100 in it, because for me that was Nando's. And
that's a killer.
That was Nando's money, right? That was beans and toast, and mate, even if I'd have put that any level of investment on that, I would have been, I'd be running this podcast, wouldn't I?
Yeah,
not being
even
a guest
if you
of
put
it.
£100 in, mate, it'd have been a
millions, mate, 100%. But I didn't have a clue, mate, to be honest. I think the thing was back then, it was still very sort of antiquated in the sense that you go to uni, you graduate, you get a good job, and there wasn't as much as, Facebook was really sort of coming into its own back in 2008. When I was at uni, it was really kicking off into its own thing. So we couldn't have leveraged the opportunities that are readily available now through socials like you probably would back then. Yeah. So in my head, I was just going to go and try and get a good job. And the next best thing to obviously losing the grad scheme in telecommunications for me was looking at something that was going to be future-proof, which was tech. My uncle actually worked at the time at Hewlett-Packard, which people now know as HPE, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And he got me into their grad scheme. And again, there was 2 options. He said you can either go work for those guys, or you could go work for one of their partners, their resellers. Yeah. Which is not as big on your CV, but it will give you more of a grounding and an understanding of that sort of kind of the technology industry as a whole. And for me, it made sense, because I think I saw how affluent that lifestyle my uncle used to have. Always had really nice Mercedes, Audis, and all these things that people have when they're 15 now, not when they're 35. But at the time, obviously, it was a big thing. And I thought, he has got a really nice house, great lifestyle. I want to have that. So if I don't want to be a doctor or that sort of thing, then the next best thing, tech, people that work in tech are earning footballer money. Yeah, 100%. Commissions, it's all dictated on, you make your own luck, because the more you sell, the more you get paid. And all the retail jobs that I've had were always commission based. So I always had this whole thing instilled that I want to be able, if I can't have my own business, I want to be in control of my own earning potential. And tech sales was able to give me that. And that's how I ended up basically graduating. And I did go for the smaller reseller and ended up working there for a few years. And met who is now a chap that I still work with now, sort of 15 years later, and he's my business partner in a tech firm that we've just set up in the last 3 years.
Cool.
So what do you do for your tech firm and stuff like that?
So at the moment, it's a little bit of everything really. So the company's called Etage, and that business is actually the French word for floor.
Yeah.
And obviously it has some affiliations with cloud as well. Obviously cloud technology being a massive thing now, as I'm sure everyone is aware of. But in essence, we are an extension of the big vendors, right? What we do is actually resell technology. So like corporate infrastructure, like hardware, so like servers, storage, networking. But we do that with a myriad of different software houses, working in collaboration with people like Microsoft, VMware, Oracle, Citrix. And what we do is basically solve business problems for technologies that have obviously got challenges in their technology department. And what we do, if we come and see a customer and we understand that they've got X, Y, and challenges through the provisioning of their infrastructure, then we look to solve it through technology outcomes, basically. Consulting, we actually do a little bit of recruitment into facilitating shortages of skill sets for people to deliver technical projects, and we do hosting and managed services for people that obviously don't want to buy their own IT, but we can run that on their behalf. So, and it's again, a really good place to be in. Technology is always going to be a future-proof space, really.
So how did you even go into starting that with the boss? Obviously, he was working at HP and an affiliation of them. How did it actually come around? How did the conversation go down between starting that and
Yeah, so once I finished obviously working my first stint where I met him, literally because they were a smaller reseller, I always had the aspiration to kind of going back to see what was on the other side of the coin. Yeah. Which was the bigger vendor, and kind of experienced both sides of the coin, the regional, the sort of smaller firms, as well as also the big corporates, and try that angle. And as a result of that, then I did a few years with him, and then I thought, I'm going to go and see what it's like on the other side, basically, see what I was missing. Is the grass greener, basically? You're still a young lad in your early 20s, and you think, could the grass be greener? And 9 times out of 10, you'll learn in life that it always isn't. And because I had a great time working with those guys at OCSL, and it was very sort of work hard, play hard mentality. A lot of incentives, very sort of Wolf of Wall Street style. You get Lamborghinis for weekends if you do hit your targets. And we didn't toss midgets on dartboards, but it was the closest thing you'll get to doing it legally, right? I guess, and that sort of stuff. It was a really good environment, very sort of heavily encouraged to kind of have healthy competition. And I thought, I've done that for a few years. What's it like doing it for HP? And I ended up working for a company called Symantec, which most of us who consume their Norton antivirus or McAfee. It's Norton antivirus, and did cybersecurity at a time that was actually really good, and the UK when GDPR was coming to full fruition for protecting customer data. And again, so progressed through that, had a couple of pre-IPO companies that maybe you get stock investment. And the attractive thing about those, that potentially, if you're getting at the bottom and you get enough stock and they do go public, then they can obviously, you get a big chunk of cash out of that. Unfortunately, I had 3 options on the table. One of the options I had was a company that got acquired by Salesforce. The other one actually did IPO, and then the one that I joined tanked.
Stinker.
But they're all these things pre-IPO.
It's hindsight, isn't it?
A lot of risk, but they're always gambles. But the upside of that is that if it does go the way that you want it to, it can be very lucrative. But it didn't. And having done that for a few years, then obviously having left Rob and OCSL, which is obviously where I was, I felt a little bit kind of, I guess, not disillusioned, but a little bit kind of lost in the industry and just kind of losing the appetite for it. And I started sort of thinking back as to what made me sort of hungry and what made me most happy and where was I working most kind of successfully. And it was in that environment whereby the corporate stuff is very sort of restrictive. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of process. And what I like is being more entrepreneurial, more sort of free flowing, and having more kind of...
A bit more creative.
Yeah, exactly. Being able to be more, take more risk, be more creative and try different things, but without having to follow so much process. When you work for these big corporates, you have to do so much cadence, you have to do reporting, updating a forecast, all this sort of stuff. It's admin stuff.
Not fun, that is it?
Yeah, you want to be doing the actual stuff that makes you money, which is the selling, right? Not the updating your spreadsheet so your boss can report back to his boss and then subsequently up the... It wasn't for me. I did it for about 5, 6, 7 years, and I was just, you know what? I need to think of something different to do. And that's when I started looking at alternative ways of actually making money. And I'll come back to obviously how I ended up setting up this tech company now, because actually Rob had already set it up sometime before I joined, but obviously I got invited to then obviously come and develop that with him at a later point. So that was actually started 3 years ago, but I've just been invited recently in the last 6 months. But then in between that space, I've, still doing working tech in the background. I started sort of doing the whole research pieces to how we can make more side income and doing things that you prefer doing, like, the things that I liked to do when I was at school, like trading Pokemon cards, trading, selling sweets.
So we'll take it back to there, like, was you entrepreneurial in like your younger years? And like you said, then you're selling Pokemon cards. How did that even come about?
Mate, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So even in Venezuela, mate, the thing that kind of got me kickstarted into that sort of trading and, leveraging services and that sort of stuff was, remember the odd Pogs and Tazos and things like that? They used to like get in crisp packets, the little circular things like that.
No.
No idea.
And therein shows my age, I guess. But, when I was at school in South America, those are a very big thing. They were like little like plastic little like thing, like you basically slam them against each other and you like twist them over and you used to win them off people. And we used to either play for them, we used to trade them, and I just became a bit of a, as I say, like a wheeler and dealer, because I used to base my dad used to, like I said, I used to take my dad to like a macro in Venezuela and said, just buy me all these crisp bags. So like buying hundreds of bags because every one contained a single one. And I used to come into school basically to sell them, trade them, play them. And I used to cheat. Like, obviously, these things used to be like, you have to make the whole point is that you basically slap them off the ground. If you twist them over, you take them off the person.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're flat on the ground, they're hard to flip over. So I used to like just put a little stone underneath and just to make sure that it's on an angle, so I could flip them every time.
Just quality.
Secure the bag when I was like 7 years old.
That's mad.
So that kind of kickstarted it all. Then obviously when we moved to the UK, then
how much? Let's go back to that. How much thing you was making from like selling these? Whatever.
This is all like, yeah. So, mate, to be fair, at the point, it's Venezuelan bolivares, but that's probably one of the most devalued currencies in the world. So, if we're translating it in dollars loosely, like a few dollars a day, like $10 a day. When I was like 7,
that's not bang on when you're
bucks,
7,
mate. That's mega bucks for a 7-year-old. It's like, Dad, pocket money now. Sorry, I got my own cash. So, I've just been like fleecing the school. And I did end up in the principal's office like a couple of times. The headmaster's office. Obviously, they call them principals in America. But it's like, what are you doing every day? It's like you're supposed to be at school and all you're worried about. It's like I used to come with like a little like bum bag, like you see all these guys in Ibiza with, like bum bag, but mine was full of cash. And I was just like, what's all this money come from? It's like, just selling crisps. And that was my front. I was selling like crisps because I actually sold the crisps, but then, because they used to be attached on the outside, I used to take them off and sell the crisps.
Oh, man, that's a double whammy,
mate.
Literally.
So it was literally that was kind of like, so small fry stuff in the grand scheme of things, but relative to me at the time, I thought I was just like an absolute gangster at the time. I was just thinking I'm like the go-to guy.
Sick. So from there, was you like, have you been like flipping things your whole life, like on the side, like doing like wheeling deal and stuff? Like what else would you
pretty
do
much,
after
mate? At uni, at school, to high school, the big thing now, which again, this comes back to everything in life comes in circles, mate. It always comes back around. Fashion, to everything, mate. It always, that's what I was. I'm not a hoarder, but I'm encouraged to keep certain things. Like, had I kept my Pokemon collection back in like the early 2000s, mate, I'd be running the Logan Paul podcast right now. Because, like, honestly, there used to be a shop, like a shop that used to game shop, but like a regional one that used to sell like video game store, and he was actually the Pokemon like seller in my area. I used to go to school, finish school, get the train into town, and then literally go buy Pokemon packs. Like, and I'm talking about the ones that you see now on the big podcast, like season 1, like Pokemon, like drop 1, with like the Charizard, like the Venusaurs and the Blastoise.
Mad.
And I still remember to this day getting my first Charizard out of a pack, and it was like Christmas has come early, because in my head, that's 25 quid I've just got here.
How much is that worth now?
That's what I mean. This guy, because I'd sell it to the guy over the counter that I just bought it from for 50 quid, and he'd put it in a folder and he'd just start selling them all.
Mad.
Those Charizards now, I mean, there wasn't a first or a limited edition. It was a mint condition one. I think some of them goes for like it's still on eBay. You see some of them going for about $3,000.
What?
3, 4, 5 grand, depending on the print, the edition. But then you see the first editions and that sort of stuff, they go for like hundreds, if not millions.
Mad.
And I'm thinking, I used to have all these things and I just let them go. I used to sell them at car boots. I used to go on car boots on a weekend, and that's when like the Jungle collection came out after the base collection, and then the fossils. And that was the big thing for me at school. I started off with sweets and then Pokemon. Me and my friend that now lives in America is super successful guy now. But again, you can see the sort of people that are going to be quite 100%. Affluent in life because they start figuring these things out early and how to go against the grain. Mm-hmm. And me and him literally ruled the Pokemon community in school. Like we used to come in, literally finish school, go out. And then never mind when we discovered Japanese cards. Like we'd come in with one Japanese card and trade it for the whole jungle-based collection of shinies.
Mad.
It's like, man, you can get that for £5 down the road. And we traded it for your whole 300 quid's worth of shinies.
Mad. So was you just like, back then was you just like, again, just trading Pokemon cards and like making money from like trading?
That's it, mate. Stuff? Literally selling sweets and then Pokemon cards. And this is when I was flipping out. We were 13. Mm-hmm. I'm 35 now. So it's 22 years ago. And imagine, like, you never know. We could never have known that Pokemon was going to be like coming back around as much as it's done in the last 2 years. Because again, like if we'd have kept all of that, mate, there'd be such good investments now. Because we had them all. We literally had duplicates of the rarest cards.
Mad. And
all we could think about at the time is just buying, selling, and then finding the next thing. And him and I, ironically enough, ended up going to uni together in London. And he does a very sort of big gig out in America for like a big conglomerate, very successful guy. And we still joke about, obviously, the times that we used to have at school, like doing Pokemon cards.
That's sick though, because you hear about people like selling sweets and stuff, but it's rare that you hear about people actually like selling like Pokemon and trading it on a higher level. How much do you think you was making like back then on the Pokemon stuff?
Thousands. But this is like when I was 13, like, that was the thing, thousands of pounds like doing Pokemon cards. And to a 13-year-old,
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
My parents was like, I don't need a PlayStation, I'll buy my own. It's like, this is like early like PS2s and stuff like this. And I'm just like, where's this guy coming from with all this money? I was like, it's like, what are you doing? So you at school? It's like, Mum, I'm just like, you won't give me pocket money, so this is the things I've got to do.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And I've never wanted to be, because obviously we did lose a lot in terms of when we grew up. I never wanted to be dependent on other people for making my own way, kind of thing. So I've always kind of had this affinity to want to obviously just do things that obviously give me freedom. Basically, for me, it's not about the money; it's about the actual being able to do the things that I want to do without having to ask for permission to do them, or being to a point. The money does obviously come into play, but I just don't want to be having to obviously one of these people that live to the weekend. Like, oh my god, it's payday.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm touch wood. I don't want to obviously see that day again. That I no longer have to obviously count the days down to the 30th of every month.
100%.
It's a scary place to be, right? And I think that's why I've always kind of trying to do whatever it takes to kind of just keep active and do different things. And at uni, the Pokemon thing upgraded then to vintage clothing at the time. We went to uni, we went in at 2005, and the whole vintage theme, Kasabian.
Yeah.
Like that whole indie scene was a big thing back then, like doing vinyl and that sort of stuff. Libertines, big bands, it's a big thing back then. And for us, that I used to basically, I set up my own sort of vintage sort of reselling business, but that was on eBay. That's when I first discovered eBay. I was at uni, and I was basically buying and selling stuff from places like TK Maxx, Rag Mills.
Mm-hmm. Like kind of like arbitrage kind of stuff, like thrifting. Yeah,
exactly, like thrifting. If now you've seen people like Glass Onion Vintage are massive now. These communities that go basically selling into the Freshers Weeks, but we did that at a smaller scale, and that probably, that coupled with a few bits and pieces put me through uni really. And obviously I still work at T-Mobile at the time, and that whole, I love the concept of sourcing something and thinking, wow, this could be worth like twice, three times what I've 100%. Just found it for. We used to buy like big, like Zara, and people said like these biker like bomber jackets, like leather jackets.
Yeah,
you'd get one of them at a thrift shop for about a $5 or a $10, and you sell it for some. We didn't know what we had our hands on. We found like an old Lewis leather aviator jacket. I didn't even know what it was, because it wasn't a simple case that you could just go on eBay and see how much these things are sold for. Back then, it's just like we'd have to research on what it was. And
so how did you find out how much they're worth?
Well, once it's sold. Because the auction just went wild. I put it up for I started up for £1, and then 7 days later it finishes for 316 quid. And I'm like, it's just a battered leather jacket. But then do a bit of research. It's like Lewis Leathers are like one of the biggest like suppliers of aviator jackets into like the US Air Force. And I'm just like, what?
That's crazy.
So again, research wasn't at your disposal the way it is now. So obviously a lot of the stuff that we kind of stumbled on, like quite fortuitously, just because we had a good eye for things that we thought looked good, that we could actually style and shoot and then flip.
Yeah.
And that's how we did. We did a bit of flipping on eBay, did T-Mobile retail, but then that was it really. I think then after that, then I graduated and then had to look for the next thing really.
So did you continue to flip things after that, or did it kind of settle off for a bit?
Yeah, so I mean, I won't go too much into that, but I did find a online gambling thing was a massive thing at the time. So the whole Channel 5 thing.
Yeah.
That was like doing like the after hours roulette thing. That was like a pit of abyss for me. I found it sort of luckily in the last year of uni, and I put in like 100 quid onto that, and I made like $3,000, but playing like automated roulette, and I think that was probably the worst thing that could have happened. You got me hooked on it basically.
Yeah. And it's a tough one.
It was hard. I mean, obviously, and then I graduated, got a pretty good job, and going through I lost a load of money like doing that online stuff, and again, that's money that I could have easily been ploughing into different things, investments on growing my own thing, but that kind of derailed me a little bit in my mid-20s, and to a point, I think it cost me a very important relationship at the time, which was probably the start that once I managed to get past that period of my life, sort of in my mid-20s, when I started kind of getting that appetite again for things. So I did lose my way a little bit in the early 20s when I sort of I went from obviously being quite savvy and being quite, having an ability to make things happen and just being, back myself to do so. I just kind of lost interest in a lot of things, lost a lot of relationships.
That's gambling, man.
Yeah. It's
well, yeah,
bad,
it was,
bad,
mate.
bad news.
And it's only when you sort of hit rock bottom, then you think it can only actually go up from here. You either get sank and swallowed by that situation, or you actually have to rise up and kind of fight against it. And I had no choice. I think it only stopped because I couldn't have any more access to funding at that point.
Mad.
And, luckily that I still had quite a good job, which was able to, I was able to pay both my student
What did you
loan.
say? Just cut that completely?
Yeah, gone, mate. Never, I had to, because like I said, luckily for me, I've not been a guy I'm quite addictive. I've got addictive personality. If I see something, I have to always see it through. And whether it's, the last thing you want to be addicted to is three things, right? Like things like drugs, gambling, all those types of things, the things that you want to kind of stay away from. Luckily, and drink, right? Luckily for me, I don't drink and I don't do drugs. I never have. And I've never even tried. So I thought the last thing that I need now is like, you can imagine having an addiction like that with another one of those two. It'd be like a recipe for disaster.
Game over,
100%, mate.
This is it. So I, overcame that luckily, and I was in a position like quite fortunate. The fact that obviously had a very good career path where I actually, applied myself again, and you can make very good commissions. And I dug myself out of the hole relatively quickly. But again, it's just not a place where I want it to be really. Not a proud moment, it did cost me a few things, both mentally, physically, so
100%. I bet you learned a lot from, the whole situation though.
I think those are the types of things that actually ultimately define you as a character, is how you actually deal with adversity as an individual. Because I think if you've had your life given to you in a silver spoon, not that I'm taking it away from people that have, but I've not had that, I've had to overcome a lot. And I'm not going to get a violin out and start saying that, oh God, yeah, look, pity me. Because it's not, because mate, at the end of the day, like, a lot of people learn the hard way that the world doesn't care what you do. Like,
yeah, it's true.
Like, you have to, you're the only person, you're the hero of your own story. You're the only person that can save yourself out of any situation.
Literally.
As much as obviously it does help to have a very sort of good foundation of friends and family, then ultimately it's only you that can drag yourself out of the pit. And I had to, and I did. I'm glad that I did, mate, because like I said, I think since that point in my mid-20s, it was a massive turning point in terms of just obviously then sort of from then cracking on and then just exploring. Because I gave up a little bit on myself, and I just thought, what is there more to this? And, do I want it? And that's when I started sort of really sort of turning the corner and start questioning around corporate life. Do I really want to be doing this forever? And that's when I started picking up eBay again. And then I started obviously looking at alternative ways of obviously making money. Started traveling again, and just starting getting my passions reignited for just doing different things. But again, it's just a lot of the opportunities that you guys offer, the communities and so forth, just weren't available even back then, like sort of 10 years ago.
100%. It's a relatively new thing, even though it's becoming massively like predominant, like right now, all these like, ways to make money online, it's all like this matrix kind of stuff. It's like, it's becoming massively popular, and it's never been easier to make money online than it has right now. Like, it's there's so much information out there. There's so many people making YouTube videos, making blogs, just making tons of content about actually how to to go out there and, you know, make money. It's even like Gary Vee, you know, him going down to like garage sales and showing you how you can just buy stuff and flip it on for a profit. It's just...
He's like a millionaire, but he still goes down to make 20 quid.
I think it's good though, because it shows you,
Is
you
it
know...
Trash Talk, it is.
Yeah, literally,
yeah.
it's
Brilliant
sick.
podcast,
Yeah, and you know, it just shows, you know, that like you said then, you know, you are the hero in your story. You know, it's up to you. Anyone can, you know, change it, turn it all around, you know, no matter how bad it gets. And, you know, you can just never give up. That's the ultimate thing. And obviously it's hard, you know, sometimes shit can be going so bad. But you just got to kind of think, you know, that like all these other people out there have turned it around. There's tons of other people, you know, it's just up to you to really do it and, you know, make a change. But like from that, you know, how did you like find out about like Crep Chief Notify? How did you like start? How did that all come around for you?
So to be fair, it was, I'd say, maybe 2 years, I think. But a lot of it did come from the fact that I wanted to maybe look at ways of actually, as we talk about things like automation and stuff like that, like I used to research things that sell, and I always keep my eye out. You know, I used to anything you can flip, I always try and do, whether it's like a car or, you know, can I buy? Look, you know, people. It has a stigma, basically, like this whole flipping thing. But for me, I always look at ways of what people are doing on YouTube to make money. And Crep Chief kept coming up and up and up. You know, as when you search for different ways, you know, it's a very generic thing. Yeah, how do you make money? But Crep Chief did keep coming up for whatever reason. Obviously, people kept talking about, I'm trialing this Crep Chief thing. I'm seeing how it goes. And, you know, back when I started doing it a couple of years, I think, was it during the Euros? I think it might have been a couple of years ago now. It was when I first got involved. And it was literally at the height of, when you remember the old draft, the beer pumps. Honestly, revolutionary product that was. And I was just like, I'm going to give this a go. Signed up. I was research, mate. I was like, literally, I'm the stingiest guy on the planet. And my missus will tell you, it's just like, I'll negotiate my bill at Nando's if I could, mate. Like, honestly. So I was like, well, can I get discounts? I work in the centre. Where are we? Oh, Trafford. Yeah, I work down there at the Trafford Centre. Yeah, mate, I'm that guy. Yeah. And I'm just like looking for 50% codes to join Crep Chief. So don't judge me. Yeah. Literally looking at who's got 50% codes. And I kept seeing like some, and I found one and I joined. I thought, you know, man, this is like literally like whatever it was, like 15 quid. So give it a go. And I ordered the first beer pump. I think it was a Moretti one, because I just like the look of the Moretti one versus the other ones. I thought,
Moretti's a nice beer,
mate, unreal. I literally saw it. I thought, I can't remember how much. I think they were a couple of £100. They weren't cheap.
It was like 200ish quid, I think.
And I thought, it's a high ticket item, but I just can't be asked to faff about with the drossy little things. I want to just go, you know, to PlayStations and stuff, you know, consoles, that sort of stuff. I want to go something big and see if it can be done. Yeah, did it. Put the first one on eBay, weren't selling on, and buy it now. And I thought, oh God, I don't want to be one of these guys that everyone moans about, because he's saturating the price because he's starting it off cheaper. But then I thought, what can I do different that everyone else is not doing? So it's either you got it listed too high as a buy it now, or you've got it listed too close to like retail. Yeah. It's because you're scared of you're not obviously getting your investment. So I thought, no one's actually listing auctions on these. So you got about 200 of these up, either buy it nows or just really cheap, or either too high. So why don't I just go against the 99% and do an auction at no reserve at £1? And then by day 6 of the auction out of 10, it had about 120 watchers. I didn't even have to go and ask people to watch, because it was just gathered so much interest, and it went for about 650 quid. Mad.
Because everyone wants that one then.
Yeah.
And this is literally like a month before the Euros kicked off. And I'm
so
thinking,
everyone's in the garden, bearing away.
The weather was good that summer, and I'm thinking, wow, it's like 300 quid on a beer pump.
So if you want to get involved in reselling like Mike was, then you can head over to the Crep Chief Notify website. You can use the exact platform that Mike was using to sell all these beer pumps and stuff like that to become a reseller. So if you want to get involved in that, the link will be in the description. It's called Crep Chief Notify. It's another business that we own. We do have an app on the App Store as well that you can go download and sign up to. So if you want to get involved and you want to start making £500 to £1,000 additional income every single month, that is the place for you.
So then I just maxed out my American Express the next day.
How many did you buy? Did you just keep buying them all?
By the time I got as many, because obviously it came in dribs and drabs from, is it Beowulf?
Beowulf.
That was it. It came in dribs and drabs, and every time I was sat by my phone, as soon as it went bang, I was like, yeah, I'm sure that's a Beowulf. So I went bang, I literally, by the time I was all said and done, in the space of like a couple of weeks, I ended up getting about 35 of them, which was a big investment. But I was pretty confident after I'd done what I'd done, that I thought, I'd at least break even. If cause people aren't going to buy them for cheaper because if not, I'll just give them back.
It's sold out anyway.
Yeah,
so
100%.
I've got my Amex, so I'm protected. I know that obviously not everyone's going to have access to an American Express, and I'm not by any means saying go and put yourself in ridiculous debts. But at that point, I could afford to. So I thought, if I could turn this around in a 30-day period, for me, this looks like a no-brainer because I'm just getting a line of credit from Amex in order to basically put this
sell
on.
one a day.
Well, this is it. And I basically, what I did, obviously, just to obviously mix it up a bit, I had someone auction, one on a 1 day, one on a 3 day, one on a 5, one on a 10. So this constantly basically like a stream. And then I had half of them when I buy it now, and then half or offers, and then half of them in an auction stream.
Yeah.
And there was a constant a churn of sales then. And I think by the time it was all said and done, I must have made the best part. Because there was other bits, right? That was just my go-to product.
Yeah.
And my missus would just be like, this is an apartment. We're still in the same apartment. We are getting a house soon, luckily. But it was just like, she'd walk in the morning and it was just a sea of boxes around our breakfast bar. And it was just like, Mike, it's like, what the hell's this? It's like, don't worry about that, babe. The Euros kicking off soon. These will be gone in no time. So I don't care about the Euros. Like, why is my house full of boxes? What's in them? Beer pumps. It's like, but you don't even drink beer. It's like, yeah, but who cares? It's like, mate, trust me, I'll get rid of them. It's like, what do you mean you're going to get rid of them? So I'm going to flip them. It's like, for how much? It's like, I don't know. It's like, I'll double them, hopefully. It's like, well, how much are you spending? It's like 300. It's like £300 for each one of those boxes. It's like, is this why we're not going on holiday? And it's like, yeah, but if we sell them, we'll go on a really good holiday.
That's why I'll go on holiday,
yeah. So it was just like, and to be fair, mate, they went, and then
How much did you make of them?
Ballpark with everything that was in that. I mean, that summer, I think I must have, just off the beer pumps, I was probably about somewhere in between 6 or 8. It's 2 years ago, but it's about 6 or 8 grand comfortably.
And so is that minus the cost as
that
well?
was net, like after all my fees, shipping,
profit.
Yeah.
So 6 to 8 grand profit off beer pumps,
mate,
in the summer.
And this is what I mean. I thought, because I saw a lot of people moan about like the community saying, "Oh, can you really do this unless you're doing it at scale?" Well, yeah, because I've just gone out and done it. Yeah. So
literally,
proof.
I was just thinking, mate, 15 quid a month. I feel like I've cheated these boys out of 15 quid by getting it for 50% off. I was like, I hope they don't. I was just like, but this is me. I'm guilty. I'm sorry.
It's
2
worth
years
it,
later.
though. That's what I mean, though. And it's one of them. It's about like, even though it is ridiculously cheap, and realistically, if you actually do Crep Chief and you do it properly for £30 a month, you are not getting more bang for buck anywhere else.
Yeah.
But it's up to you to make it work. There'll be people who join and they go, "Oh, this is a load of fucking shit. I'm fucking off," and they'll just leave it. And it's up to you. It's up to you to make it work. And you just got to put in the time. Learn about it, and just actually do it. And if it doesn't work in the first couple of days, and keep going. It's literally, there's free cash sat there waiting for the taking. You just got to do it.
But that happens daily, mate. I see people join. I'm new. I've just flipped this. It's like, oh, is it really worth it holding on for the 30 quid? But mate, it's 30 quid you didn't have before. But it's all predicated by how much you need that money. Because we were talking about this earlier, right? Like you say, I understand that there are younger lads that come in and say, if you're reliant on that £500 you're about to spend to try and flip for your rent or your kind of bills, you should be doing it, mate. This is only, as you guys say, it's a side income, and it's only going to be done if you've got extra money to burn, or not burn, but obviously like you can afford to obviously spend in order to obviously accumulate longer term.
You've got to see it as like an investment.
100%. Like I said, I've literally got 30 fries in my house this week. I mean, most of them are gone. 2 of them, ironically, in the last hour or so whilst you've been sat here. And I'm literally just thinking, I can afford to sit on them till Christmas. But if you can't, well, then that's when it's going to be a problem. That's when you're going to start moaning about the fact. Because at the moment, literally, the eBay fees have come back in onto the promotions, and obviously they all, we've gone from having about 100 or so online to like a few thousand. Cool. It ultimately that's just standard economics, supply and demand.
Yeah,
the supply is much higher, so the demand is going to be obviously not as fluid, which will ultimately bring it down. But it's still selling over retail like comfortably, like by 50 quid at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
and especially the cheaper ones as well. The cheaper ones are the harder ones to get because people are looking to, people don't want it to, like, for example, Ninja air fryers. They start at like £200, but there's other air fryers out there that are like £100 or £80.
Yeah, the Vortex.
Did you see them?
I got 10 Vortex.
As well.
I got 10 Vortexes from Very.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. I've got a line of credit with Very.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you sign up for a line of credit, then it's literally about, I think, well, it depends on obviously a lot of this, and I say this to people that are much younger than me, not in a, I'm trying to teach you stuff like I'm your dad or anything, but take it from someone that's had a rock bottom credit. Like, your credit is king. Like if you've got a good credit score, mate, it just gives you a hell of a lot more avenues to do anything in life, whether it's mortgages, houses, business. Having a good line of credit means then that you can go on very.co.uk and open a line, and it's buy now, pay next year, interest free.
Really,
So,
for a year? So it's interest free for a year?
£5,000.
Jokes,
That's
ain't it?
fucked.
I've got 10 vortexes for 900 quid, whatever I've paid for them or whatever it is. I don't know why they're
think they're like
120 quid.
120,
Yeah, for 1,200 quid. I don't have to repay that for a year. It's a no-brainer. So I've just basically give me the 10 vortexes. I'll sell them and then I'll pay you back when I've got the money, which I will have. But it's cost me zero interest. So there's another way to de-risk your commitment to the resale community. Then that Argos do it. Currys have buy now, pay next year. So you can there's a lot of ways to de-risk your spend if you obviously like not wanting to commit capital up front, and at least that way you can work within the confines of a 30-day turnaround period.
And I'm sure you could return your products as well.
Well, yeah.
And you get your money back.
Well, I won't lie. There have been instances where I haven't been able to sell things because I've just arrived too late to the party.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then mate, most things I've got a 28-day returns policy
Free
anyway.
returns.
Yeah.
Stick a label on, it's gone.
That's it. So, all that's cost you is a bit of time. But if you don't try, then you won't know, because not everything's going to be a home run. Mate, the one thing that I'm good about, I didn't get a hold of, is these M&M ties. It's like you've seen them. It's like literally, I think it's a big commitment. £1,000 for the for the tie.
I said the other day, didn't I?
Sell for $3,000.
Shut up.
Yeah.
I've not even checked them. I knew they were selling for £1,500 the other day.
Varying, but
Yeah.
at the height of it, at the start, when obviously they just come out, you could have flipped them for like £2,000 profit. It's like, I thought it's giving me remnants of the bloody Founders Editions graphics card.
Yeah.
I went, hey, we haven't seen some of them in a while.
Not
It's like,
sleeping at night.
but again, that's a product that I sold alongside the air fryers. Not the air fryers, sorry, the beer pumps, but I just couldn't get enough of them.
Yeah, they're hard
because
to get.
Scan.co.uk was very savvy, even with the multiple phases of IP addresses.
They're on smoke, aren't they?
But
it's so hard.
man.
I just used to go for the £1,000 one every time,
Yeah.
and then wait for Bitcoin to have a massive boom. Because at that point, obviously last year when Bitcoin was climbing at the height of the bull run, but a lot of these things are, like you say, seasonal, but they're macroeconomic factors come into play. And if you think that with sort of practically, you think, what drives the price of a graphics card? The fact that all these crypto mines are require them to basically
100%.
mine them.
Yeah.
So the RG, the Nvidia cards, you couldn't get them quick enough. People were just building these rigs at home just to obviously mine
100%.
and mine and mine.
I sold like 7 of them to one guy in one go. I think I made like £800 profit each one, and he bought 7 in once. Just came to my house, just give us all the cash.
But
Sick.
that's it. But do you remember when they literally were £1,000? And you could have flipped them in some instances. They were flipping at the height of the bull run. They were flipping for 2.5. Those big
insane.
top end
and
models.
And it was $13.99 to buy, so it's like 1.1k profit.
That's what I mean.
And you were shifting a ton on Facebook Marketplace as well, so no fees, literally just $1,000 like that. That's insane.
That's a product that I missed. It's like I'm still waiting for the next.
The 4090s have just come out.
Really?
But we checked the resale price about a week or two ago. There was only about £300-400 profit in them, but it might climb.
Still
but we're just
profit.
waiting for some restocks on them at the moment.
I wouldn't put my mortgage on the crypto market going up anytime.
And a lot of people are transferring away from the ones the method where you need like graphics cards and stuff like that to support your coin, to like mine it. People are getting rid of that now. So I think in the long run, crypto mining probably will die out.
But it's always happened to your ear to the ground, basically, for me. Like, because where the story gets interesting for me in terms of it's what I did with the profits from those beer pumps.
So what did you do with the profit?
Well, this is it, right? So, I was saying to a few of the other members, so once obviously that came in, I thought, this is great. And that's when I actually invested a load of money into, I diversified that investment into 7 or 8 cryptos, like altcoins and stuff. For me, it was just kind of hedging my chances, basically. If I put £1,000 on each one, I just need 1 to 10x, and I've recovered the 8k and then some. But then I'm hoping that some of them will maybe 50 and do that. And basically, what happened? 6 tanked, one of them 40x'd, and one of them 10x'd. So, my £2,000 investment was all of a sudden worth about 50k.
Wow! Did you cash out?
So the crept cheap profits basically went into a divested portfolio of cryptos, which then basically cashed. By the time I'd cashed out, I'd got a load of money, and had to obviously declare and so forth and do that sort of stuff, and that in essence became the pot of money which has now funded my clothing brand Telecruise that we've launched literally it's only been going 6 months in terms of sales, but it's been in sort of in the works now for about 18 months in terms of dealing with suppliers, understanding the concept. And, you know, this came at a really good time for us because obviously at that point when I was doing the flipping, you know, we'd both been made redundant. And then the crypto, I mean, that crypto portfolio like blew up in about a month of me actually like placing it through like Binance. And I was just like, took out that money. I thought, you know what, I'm not one of these guys that
go back in
because of the affiliation that I had with my whole being greed when I was a kid. I thought, you know, that's real. That's not. That's great. So you get all these moon boys in crypto that basically say, "Oh yeah, my god, to the moon." It's like, mate,
hodl that shit.
To the moon. It's like, geezer, no offense, $2,000, and you're at 50. Forget the moon, mate. You're at Pluto. You've left the galaxy at this point, mate. It's like, what investment can you actually go into now that gives you multiple thousands of returns in a month? You know, you buy like stock from the 70s and you'd wait for it like 30 years to get anywhere near to what doing those kinds of gains 100%. Now. Like, and that's why I don't like to hold on to stuff too long, because you never know how it's an unregulated marketplace for a start. So it's not like obviously like the Forex industry whereby, you know, it's predicated on exchanges, it's regulated. This could flip on its head. Like we've seen that another exchange has gone under in the last 3 days.
Yeah, it's
wiped out $30 billion.
Yeah, it's literally all gone like that.
So that money's only real. You've all watched Wolf of Wall Street. It's all fugazi. It's like it doesn't 100%. Exist until it's in your pocket, basically. So for me, I took that money and then started the brand. But it was a big gamble for us because, again, we'd both been made redundant, and it's not like we were pressured to go back to work because luckily we live by a motto that I was explaining to Milo earlier. You know, we like to always have enough of a pot of savings whereby we can at least survive and keep the lights on for at least a 12-month minimum period. Yeah. And that gave us a bit of freedom to actually say, you know, do we really want to go back to work, or should we now take that plunge and finally start a business? Because when you've got mortgages, kids to look after and so forth, then it's very difficult to kind of commit finances to something that you don't know is going to work when you've got responsibilities. And that's why I wish I'd have done a lot of the things I was doing now, you know, sort of 10, 15 years ago, because you live at home with your parents, you've got disposable cash. So
exactly.
As Gary Vee says, you could fail 10 times over and you'll still only be in your 20s and go again. So, yeah, mate, it's one of them. So it started telecruise, and that's for me, it's been something that, it's been a passion that I've been chasing for a long time because I love clothing. You know, I think we all love like having nice things, but at the end of the day, you know, I used to work retail jobs. I've worked at Selfridges and I've worked at Harrods when I was obviously in my teenage years, or at uni and at college and stuff. So I've always liked clothes, and I thought I'd love to have my own brand, and that pot of money enabled that to do almost, not say risk free because it's still money that you don't want to lose, but it's almost basically, it saved me having to go to a bank to apply for a business loan then, and obviously sort of being worried about rate of interest, paying back monthly and that sort of stuff. And we launched that in the end. I think we started selling end of April this year.
So how did it go?
We've sold that 3 times in 6 months.
Sick. That's insane.
Which again, this for us is going to be like we'll do this as a bit of a side income to try and obviously keep ourselves busy while obviously lockdown finishes, and ultimately just to try and do something for ourselves.
Passion project.
Yeah, exactly. And we can always go back to work, and things all, you know, this is never always going to last forever. So we thought we could always go back to work when we need to, and we could, I don't want to live with regrets. And the longer that I leave it, the harder it's going to become. The older that I get, and I'll lose kind of that sort of hunger to try and chase that sort of. And it's you know, clothing tends to be a sort of younger man's game, if you will. So luckily for me, I looked about 10 years old, so dressed like a teenager, still going on 40, but still, it's... the
stuff's insane though.
No, I appreciate it.
Fire.
But this is what we wanted to create. I think that whole concept was that everyone was living in sort of loungewear, right? You know, the whole dynamic of going to the office changed. You know, everyone was working from home, and all my meetings were basically Zoom meetings, you know, in sweats. So I thought, can we twist that on its head? Because I mean, I'm a big fan of Essentials, Fear of God, you know, like what those guys have created is that movement is now basically just snowballed everything into an avalanche of like, it's basically validated loungewear as a luxury item. It's not just like you're not just a roadman or a chav or just a guy with like, you know, baggy sweats or whatever. It's actually like, it's made that sort of line of clothing, streetwear, almost like it's glamorized it, if you will, a little bit.
100%.
So, you know, there's some big brands out there that are doing very similar things, you know, in terms of streetwear, hoodies, cargos, all this sort of stuff. And I think I'm a big consumer of those brands, don't get me wrong. But for me, I thought, is there a way that this can be done, given the circumstances of living conditions, lockdown, that can be done at a high quality, but also at a more affordable price point. Because I didn't want to be a person that buys a £200 hoodie just because you can't get them in a shop. Just in essence, it's again, I'm not going to obviously say it's a bad product because I do wear a lot of it and I do love it. But for me, I just looked at it very sort of simplistically in the sense that this is a 70% cotton and 30% poly hoodie. Like, I could make this better, like having it all 100% organic cotton.
Yeah, 100%.
And doing it for half the price, because like, kids, as much as they want to be within the latest trends and so forth, they shouldn't have to go out and force people to spend £200 on a hoodie from Kit Game and places like that.
And a lot of people haven't got that kind of money to
100%.
invest. You know, it's going to like turn your nose up. Realistically, if you want to grow your brand, you need people recommending it to their friends. You need it actually within the culture. If no one can buy your hoodie because they don't want to, spend their money on it, then how are you ever going to like get more people referring it? How are you going to get that kind of like extreme organic growth?
Thinking about a more serious side hustle and something that you can actually take into a full-time business? Well, then you should consider Amazon FBA. Amazon FBA is another great side hustle. It does take more time, more effort and more learning than reselling, but it's a great side hustle that has a lot of scalability to it, and it does require a little bit more money to start. It basically works on about 20 to 30% ROI on every penny you invest. So if you want to get involved in that, you want a more serious, a more scalable and a more time consuming side hustle, then you should check out Amazon FBA. And we here at Side Hustle, we also own another business called Seller Circle. Seller Circle is exactly like Crep Chief Notify, and basically what this is an information education platform where you can learn all about and find step-by-step guides on how to become an Amazon seller. We'll also provide you with products that you can go out and buy from stores to sell on Amazon to make a profit. So if you want to get involved with that, check out Seller Circle. Once again, the link will be in the description.
Well, this is what I was hoping. We're an unknown brand, but like I said, my kind of key differential I want to drive into this is simplistic. For me, less is more. You go into like designer shops and see a very nice Balenciaga hoodie, just with the logo
it's like
embroidered.
£800 now.
800 quid
It's
for a hoodie.
jokes.
And so I'm thinking, mate, it's like this is. For me, for this to justify this, it would have had to be literally handmade by the wall of alpacas from Machu Picchu, handpicked in Peru, mate. You know what I mean? It's like £800. So I thought we could make something quality, essential, a simple, and rid it from distractions of branding and stuff, and just keep it about the product and the quality, right?
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that that's what we've done, and because we continue to keep selling out, because we've done that at a price point that's, I think, is very fair, right? A lot of brands are still selling hoodies at like 140, 150, 200 pounds. I thought we can do this for about 60, 70 quid.
Do you think your prices will start to go up, or
I mean,
are you going to kind of keep it?
I'm trying to swallow as much of it as possible now, because we want to keep consistent with our message, right? In terms of the luxury, 100%. Say luxury and affordability, but all these things are relative to people in terms of their circumstance. Yeah. I like to think that our product stacks up really well against what the things you can get out there.
I think it does, yeah.
The silhouettes are nice, they're simple. The thick. I mean, I'm
and that's what you were in full.
I'm season 2 now, but these are just the samples. So what you see now will probably be better in a month's time or so when it drops in December. We're thinking a lot of it's going to be delayed based on shipping times, because it's coming from various different countries, and as I'm sure they've seen, that some of the shipping ports are on strike as well at the moment in Ipswich and Felixstowe, which is where the things land. So we're trying to just sort out logistics, but the plan is to be relaunching on season 2 in middle of December, if not just after Christmas.
Perfect.
So we're hopeful for it, right? As you can imagine, 3 sellouts in 6 months. It's sort of superseded our anticipated sort of projections, really. Yeah. We thought if we can break even in 12 months, then we've got a really good little business here. And we broke even in 2, and then
sick.
Which I thought, wow. So that's when I actually thought we've got something.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd wake up in some random days and I'd see my Shopify going off, and you obviously go and check in who's done it. And one of the days I had a footballer from Chelsea Football Club, and sick. I was like,
how was you even like marketing it to like sell it that far? What was the starting period like? How was you marketing it?
So organically,
yeah.
Again, coming back to me being quite sort of risk adverse in some ways, obviously given personal experiences, I wanted to do as much of it as just kind of word of mouth as possible. Yeah. And that actually did really well. We had luckily a really good support from our immediate friends and family, but that died off very quickly. You very quickly learn who actually backs you as an individual when you actually go out on your own. And But then off the back of that, we just did it, Instagram stories. We focused a lot of our budget into creating very simplistic but high-end content. We work with a really talented group of lads, actually, the videographers as well as photographers. Chap called Nathan Wadden, very talented photographer, and Chris Motion, he's called. This is his Motion Videos, his handle on Instagram. It's a really talented. These guys are working with some high-end brands like Aston Martin, Vauxhall. They're doing some big commercial pieces and a lot of big brands. So for me, I knew they were out of my depth.
Yeah.
As far as a start, these are brands that people with huge budgets are hiring. But I thought, if I'm going to start a new business, I need to be able to obviously put my best foot forward to give it a chance of succeeding, and that's when it becomes important to get the right creative and focus a lot of your investment into obviously like standing out. Mm-hmm. And these guys did that in abundance, basically. Our style is minimal, but you can see that obviously a lot of work's gone into it, basically, and that's what I think's helped to sold it out so quickly. That coupled with price point, and I think obviously like right colours, season, that sort of stuff, it's going really well. Like I said,
So what was
mate.
Yeah,
Thank
literally sick. And you love to hear it. It's all about the going out there and just believing in yourself, and like you said, you just got to take the risk in a sense. There's if you don't take risks, you're never going to get anywhere. You're going to be sat in the same position for years and years and years until you do something, until you take that risk and actually just do it. It's like, just do it is my favourite saying in life. It's just because it's just so perfect. It's like to start anything, and the biggest thing holding most people back is just not doing anything about it, just not doing anything. So I think, massive respect for that, and I genuinely love to hear it. But going back to your Instagram and stuff, is it genuinely just you putting it on your stories, other people referring it, and then them following your Instagram and buying from there,
So it was at the start, and I think obviously once quickly that sort of fad of it being new, sort of that sort of hype sort of fades off a little bit after the first few weeks. Then I did obviously have to start looking at exploring methods around obviously how to then grow that. And that's, again, very much out of my comfort zone, things that I know very little around, which I'm now starting to learn in abundance because it's a very lucrative field. Metaverse and obviously everything that comes within that ecosystem around advertising. It's Facebook ads, right? Mm-hmm. So something I knew nothing around, for me as far as that advertising goes, is just, shall I just boost a post on Instagram and which actually has its ups and downs and actually it does work, but it's learning the whole concept around obviously driving ads and traffic through the way that you create audiences and so forth on Facebook ads.
So you running your own ads yourself?
Initially, we actually hired an agency to do that because again, just obviously doing the tech business and obviously doing my day-to-day and the flipping and the crypto and all that sort of stuff, then I just haven't got the time. So for me, having an easier life is the best way to go for it. Mm-hmm. So we outsourced that to an agency. But the thing what you come across is a lot of agencies, and this is what a lot of young brands struggle, I'd say, is for the fact that they have a very big retainer up front and they want to normally commit you to at least a minimum of 3-month contract. And if you think some of these retainers tend to range between, depending on the agency, between £1,000 to £2,000 a month, and that's just purely to pay them 100%. To run them, and then you have to factor in your ad spend on top
and profit.
Exactly right. So it can very quickly get diluted. So they said these guys are telling us you have to run about 200 quid a day, and that's at £6,000 a month. We're a brand new business. It's like, mate, who's got £6,000 a month to run on Facebook ads?
100%.
You won't.
Might not work.
100%. And a lot of these risks, me and Lily and my missus, we're basically going through my mind thinking, so if we sign a retainer, we've got to commit just $4,500 just to pay them to run them, and then the ad spend on top, which could be another $6,000. That's $11,000. It's like I need to sell a lot of hoodies to get $6,000 back, right? So we did it for a while, and it worked to a point, and then again I started networking with people that had done this and other brand owners, and there's been a really good guy actually that runs a local brand. He's actually based up north here, and he's based out in Liverpool, and he's been a really good help actually. He's 3 years down the line with his ecom business, and he's actually learned it all himself from scratch. But this is a guy that's actually gone out and spent 30-40k of his own money to learn and trial and error, and he's been a very good friend actually to me to actually say, I've got a trial and tested formula that's worked for me, which I think with your creative would probably fly. And we tested it with him, and that's when it really kicked on from there, really, because actually repurposing the funding away from retainers into the actual ad spend by having someone that actually he ran it for us. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that we did it all off our own backs. We've had a lot of help.
Yeah, 100%.
Which I think sometimes you do need, and you can't be too scared to ask for it.
You can't do it all yourself, 100%. No way it's ever happening.
And he basically, the return on ad spend that he gave us versus the agency was literally catastrophically scary. It was almost like 10-1. And I was just like, wow. Like, and this is at a point whereby we were almost sold out again anyway.
Yeah.
And we had just like, you know, the XLs and the extra smalls, like the both ends of the spectrums out. Because everything that tends to sell tends to be typically down the range of the middles, the mediums, the larges. And he literally took what we had left that we were trying to obviously like get rid of just before we obviously relaunch. And he got rid of it in like 3 weeks.
Crazy.
And it was like, it felt like a little Black Friday sale,
That's
which
sick.
I'm quite, you know, we're going to miss that unfortunately this year, but hopefully next year. But it was literally, my Shopify notification goes bang, 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 bang. I'm just thinking, this is mint.
That's
Yeah.
sick.
It's overwhelming, right? You've created something
feel
from
like that,
thin
does it?
air and strangers are buying it. I'm just thinking, this is amazing, right?
100%.
And yeah, so that's what really sort of kicked us on. But then it's taught us to consider things that we were never considered before. Like the whole Facebook ad space, if you can actually learn that as a skill set as a young person, whoever, or even the chap that's obviously helping us, it's like, it's a great skill set to have.
100%.
Ad agencies are making so much money now.
It's
So-
a big side hustle as well. Like I've seen a lot of this recently. You know, a lot of people starting like marketing agencies as a side hustle, and I think that kind of plays into, you know, this whole agency route of like, you know, some of them don't deliver. You pay them $2-3 it doesn't work. You spend your ad money, and you know, it's making the space kind of a bit of a weird space because there's tons of people not only, you know, doing this who are extremely expensive and know what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's all these other people who are starting this as like a side hustle who've been only doing Facebook ads for 1-2 months, and you know, you're paying them retainers. They're gaining clients, and the whole space is just a bit of a sticky situation. We've had, you know, problems. We've had people in the past. It's been, you know, hit and miss. Sometimes it
You
does
just need
really
a
well.
referral, really.
Sometimes it does a bit mid. It's just like,
I think you
it's a
learn.
sticky space.
You do learn the hard way that a lot of agencies operate in the same model, mate. It's just like big retainers. Oh, we're going to take 3 months learning period. And actually, what this chap taught me is like, mate, the learning period does not take that long. If you're not seeing stuff working in the first few days, weeks, then you need to start. It means it's not working. You need to alternate it. Whereas the agency will make you sweat it out for at least a month. And mate, a month of obviously just trialing and testing, you can hide away with so many excuses
100%.
to why you're not getting the returns. But someone that knows what they're doing will show it pretty quickly. And I think I'm moving away from that agency and actually just basically going out to people that know that. For me, if you can't give me a month's worth of free trial to test, then I know you're full of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people won't. It's my time. I get that. But if you're that confident in your results, mate, I said I'll give you 10% of what you make me in the month if you're that good.
Yeah, 100%.
So at least you'll get paid either way. But they're not willing to put their money where their mouth is.
100%.
So that's when you know you've got something bad. But it's getting that sort of stigma that the way that the Forex community used to have. And the only reason that I can see the affiliation, you know, this is probably one of the other things that I do on the side actually is that Forex trading, which the crypto stuff was good, but that was just like investment. But whereas this, I actually do some day trading as well.
So how did all that start for you?
So again, I was, you know, you kind of get sort of seduced by the glamour of what Forex gurus tend to be, and anyone that follows me on Instagram will probably actually throw shade at the fact that my page does look very Forexy wannabe, but it's not. It's actually driven by the fact that we do a lot of travel blogging and stuff like this, but that's a different story. But you know, it's all heavily glamorized with the Lambos and, you know, the buy this course and, you know, you'll make X amounts on MetaTrader and all this sort of stuff, and we'll send all these signal sellers, right? And I probably went through about 3 or 4 grand's worth of scams before I realised that there's a pattern of people, you know, all these, they're always about 20, 22. They live in Southampton. They're all in the same apartment. And I'm just like...
I'll drive the same car.
Yeah. So they were basically all sharing a pool R8 basically. So didn't need that guy over last week. I'm just unfortunately it took $5 of my money to figure out that there was a common theme here. And again, so in the search for trying to find educational material that actually can teach you to be self-sufficient in that space, then I did end up coming across a company, or rather there wasn't even a company at the time, it was just a one individual chap called Sebastien Dubois, French guy that's actually based out here in Manchester. Super successful entrepreneur. You know, again, this is a guy that for me showed all the qualities of someone that I wanted to see in that space. You know, he had the cars to back it, because if you are spending that sort of level of money then, and you are making what you say you are, you're not driving a C-Class Mercedes, your PCP at your local garage, mate. You're driving the 6-figure sum car, right? The Lambos, the Ferrari, and this guy did. But he didn't care how he flaunted it, because he actually said, you only hate me because you ain't got it. kind of, I don't care what, and he lives very freely knowing that he doesn't care what people think.
Yeah.
I thought this guy actually, I like what he's saying. You know, very Andrew Tate-esque in his approach. He's like, I don't care. It's like, you like it, you don't. It is what it is. I'm not going to lose sleep over your thoughts. Went and basically took his course, a weekend course. Super switched on guy. You got a lot of collateral. You know, you learn about technical analysis and fundamentals, which is what drives the economy and all these things. And did the course. I bought, off the back of it, I bought his book. I should actually switch back. I bought his book first, then I did the course, because I actually made about $9,000 off his book.
Really?
Just basically putting into theory what he taught on the book. Then I thought, well, this is now paid for the course. The course obviously was, you know, a few £100 over the course of a weekend in Chester, hotel and whatever. I did the course, and in the end, mate, obviously that's probably the most legitimate source of trading that I'd found over the sort of years I've been investigating it. And I've made some really good side income off the back of that. And that's all subsequently since they've now actually got a trading floor in Manchester, called FX Cartel, which is the sort of name of the business. You probably would have seen them driving around, or sort of here. They've all got sort of super ridiculous cars, and they've built up a really good community of traders there. But again, they teach how to do it in a very sort of transparent way, and what they do actually very well is actually show you ways to make it actually more attainable for people that haven't got capital. Because what a lot of people think is that you need hundreds of thousands to actually get to that point, but yes and no. But what they teach you to do is actually get taught through proprietary firms. And for those what don't know what that is, a proprietary firm is a prop firm that basically funds your trading, so it de-risks you having to use your own capital, which is what I do now. You know, these guys, companies you would have heard maybe of them, FTMO, My Forex Trading, they basically show, you know, they give you the ability to demonstrate that you can trade consistently. And if you can prove that to them through a series of 2 challenges, you know, there's a challenge and a verification. You have to make 10% of your account over the course of a month and then 2 months.
Yeah.
You do that, and whatever money you spend to take the test, they give it you back anyway. If you can trade, then it's a no-brainer, because you basically is de-risking it with someone else's money. And again, that's how I got into that. But yeah, I did have to kind of kiss a few frogs and lose a few thousand to get to that point. But
100%.
Again, you know, it's just another way of actually having a vehicle to make money on the side, whether it be Crepchief, crypto investment, Forex, you know, reselling. There's, you know, your actual job.
100%.
I now live very much in a world whereby there is no excuses to not have ways of making money, because there's so many options now with the internet. And I'm not saying that for people that can't, then, you know, I'm not going to say that one shoe fits all, right? Because obviously people may have other things going on personally and whatever. So I'm not saying this is like you know, it's easy. It's not as easy as it sounds, but there are tens of different ways of doing it, right? So, you know, and you guys are living proof of that as well, which is ultimately what's got
There's
here.
just a million ways to make money online now, though.
But this is it.
It's getting easier by the day.
My Crepchief journey has ultimately diversified my investments into obviously the brand, and being able to obviously put crypto. You know, that money went from you guys and flipping those things to a small crypto portfolio, then from flipping that into a clothing brand that hopefully, well, I don't know where it can go
The
yet,
rest
but
of your life now.
well, that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
You know, for me, the view is over the next 12 months to keep growing that business and keep doing the things on the side. You know, it is exhausting. I do need to find alternative ways of trying to obviously split my time with my family as well, but we move, right? So we'll try to make our lives easier. Yeah, that's the plan.
But yeah, I suppose. How long have we been going for, Tom?
Okay, an hour and 10.
An hour and 10?
Yeah. Wrap it up.
Yeah, I think. Quick point on the Forex stuff though. I think the whole Forex space is like, especially, you know, the other people, like you said, you lost 3-4 grand earlier, you know, they've really tainted this kind of like online making money market, because they scam so many people. Even like Alex, who works for us and, you know, knows Max and that, it's like, he even like got done for I know tons of people, even one of my friends, so many people like literally got like done by like Forex scams and stuff like that. And I think that really tainted the kind of like market on making money online. And that was like one of the first ones to really pop up, that popped up on social media. It was just everywhere. I knew about Forex. Literally, so many people literally knew about Forex. Even when I was actually just reselling on the side and before we'd started any of these businesses, you know, I always knew what Forex was. I always knew that it's kind of SideHustle, but I just automatically assumed that it was a scam. You can just kind of sense it. But then again, it comes similar with like Crepchief. It's like, you know, people probably look at Crepchief and think this is probably a scam as well. But I suppose it's a little bit different with that, because, you know, there's tons of like proof out there. There's tons of people making videos. We're making videos showing exactly how it works.
Use mic.
Oh, sorry, mate. Is it that bad? Oh, well, God. Sick. But yeah, I think there's, it's massively like tainted by like, making money online. But, you just got to go out there, do it, try a couple of different things, do things that aren't going to take massive risk. If you have to put like £400 deposit into something, maybe think about doing something else, like start, like realistically, when you start Crep Chief, you're paying us £30 and then the rest of your money is going to like a legit retailer, someone like Curry's, Very, people who are never, ever, ever going to scam you. Like the max you can lose with Crep Chief is like £30. Other than that, you can just return your items.
Well, this is it, mate. I think for anyone that wants to message me privately, I'm sure you can share the handles afterwards. I'm more than happy to kind of advocate for the fact that I can feel the frustrations from people because I have other users talk about it. I see it in the forums, but flip it on its head. If you ain't gone to the gym, you got a 30 quid subscription to go David Lloyd, in most cases 8 quid. You're saying that this is a scam for 30 quid because there's no enough margin in it, but you're willing to go and spend £80 on a gym membership that you won't show up for 30 days. What's the difference?
100%.
Who's scamming who? It's like, I'm sorry, but you'll get back what you put in ultimately. And yes, some products will give you more than others, but I'm happy to talk to anyone. I'm not by any means a financial advisor, but there are alternative ways to be able to fund the side hustle that is reselling, whether it be through credit cards, through like what we talked about, lines of credit. So I get it that, if you're 18, you obviously got a part-time job, then it can be difficult because you're waiting for your capital to come back on the first flip. But there are ways to work towards obviously increasing that as you kind of progress through that journey. Like, I'm sure you guys, when you started, you weren't landing 60 PlayStations when you first landed.
No way. It's like a couple shoes a month, maybe something like that.
100%. You weren't cooking 60 pairs of Yeezys, that sort of stuff. It's all progressive, and like you can't just look at this as an instant gratification. It's like I bought a PlayStation, I want money now. It's like it's a patience thing, right? And it goes back to what I was saying. You can't just have it overnight. You've got to be gradually worked towards. So you guys, obviously, as you grew your business, then you gradually got more connections, and then henceforth, you can go out and buy more things than the average person can,
100%.
because you've got a book of contacts. It's like that came over years of work, not weeks of selling. It's like, So, like I said, if anyone wants to message me on that, I'm happy to kind of spitball ideas as to how we can do it. I've literally just about to go into a unit now, so my reselling's gone from my living room now into it's only a small container, but I'm sure I've seen Alex do it, one of the guys that now works for you guys.
It's a great way to do it, to be honest.
That's what I mean, because you don't want to be surrounded by your working conditions, because it does get you down ultimately. It's like being like claustrophobic in like a sea of fryers. It's like, I get it, but it can grow to that. I only started doing one-offs to test it, give it a go, and then I thought I can see the grass through the trees. Actually, if I can make this kind of money, then I'm going to double down, and I did.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's kind of been like a ripple effect, almost like a kick down one domino. It's just cascaded the rest.
100%.
And I'm not saying it's going to be the same for everyone, but it works.
You've got to make a start and
100%, mate.
See what happens.
And I'm just thankful to you guys, obviously, for the opportunity. And like I said, if it weren't for that sequence of events, then I might not be here chatting about this, but secondly having the options that I've got now. So a big thanks to you guys. Nice one.
I appreciate that, bud.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the podcast, bud. I
appreciate it.
There's a great point to end it. You've got an incredible story, mate. I'll be honest, it's fantastic. And it's just again proof in the pudding. It's you can do anything. You just got to go out there, chase your dreams, and actually make them something. But other than that.
And I'm 35, mate, so imagine, like I said, it's not too late. Like I'm almost
Exactly,
OAP
100%.
compared to most of the community now.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely start sooner rather than later, guys. Yeah, for sure. Let's crack on.
Yeah,
Amazing,
but anyway,
mate.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been cracking.
Nice one, lads. Thank you.
Till next time.
Yes.